Hi, Mike Raine here with Canadian Musician, and sitting with me here at North by Northeast is Martha Johnson, famously of Martha and the Muffins, and now with a new solo album called, fittingly, Solo 1. How are you doing today, Martha?
Fine, thank you. Nice to meet you.
It's very nice to meet you as well. And so I want to start with the new solo album, Solo 1. It's your first, well, I guess in the mid-90s you released a children's album that was technically a solo album as well. But for Martha and the Muffins fan, this will be, I guess, their first foray into you making adult music on your own with complete control. I guess, why did you decide to create a solo album at this point in your career?
There's a number of reasons. I suppose the main reason was I just decided that I had a number of songs, and I'd been working with other people, other songwriters, co-writing songs, and they were all turning out very well, and I was pretty pleased with them. And the last bunch of songs I wrote were with Ron Sexsmith, and he came over to my house one afternoon about a year ago, and he and I sat down and wrote these 3 songs, and he said, "What are you going to do with these?" And I said, "Gee, I don't know. I'm not sure what to do with them." And he said, "Why don't you do a solo album?" I said, "That'd be great." And I said, "Well, I do have a bunch of other songs that I've written over the last while, and I wrote a couple more newer ones in the last year, you know, when I was working in the studio." And so I just went with that. And the other reasons were, I guess, I was with my health is an issue because I have Parkinson's disease, and it's a degenerative disease. And so, as the years go on, it's been 12 years now. As the years go on, my capabilities are lessening to some degree. I mean, I'm definitely not at a point where I'm not able to do music. I can't tour anymore. It's a bit too demanding. But certainly making music and writing music is something I can still do. So I wanted to do it when I'm still very able-bodied to do that and have a lot of ideas to express.
And, well, I guess since you brought it up, I want to ask, you were diagnosed with Parkinson's over 10 years ago. I believe it was in 2001 or so?
2000.
2000. And when you found that out in the years following, how did, I guess, that diagnosis impact your music, not just physically, but also creatively? Did it inspire you, or did it, I guess, dissuade you?
It really inspired me. I mean, at first I was really freaked out, as you can imagine anybody would be, and I thought I was going to change very quickly and be very limited. First thing I wanted to do was take a video of myself talking to my daughter, because I thought she was only 8 years old then, and I thought I wanted her to remember me the way I was. In fact, you know, she's 20 years old now, and you know, I'm still pretty much the person I ever was. But I got a lot of ideas from the fact that I had this limitation, and I think when you're limited in some way, you actually find new things. Like I remember my mother-in-law was she's not with us anymore, but she was a writer, a novelist, and she said she got more things done when her kids were all in school. She had 4 kids, and they were all running around the house, and she had to do everything. She said she would allot a certain amount of time. So I think sometimes when you're limited in some way, you make more of that situation than you would if you didn't have those limitations.
And, well, I guess this is a good time to bring up that proceeds from the new solo album, Solo 1, are going to the Michael J. Fox Foundation for Parkinson's Research, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah, the Pledge Music campaign that I've been doing is one that has been very, very, very successful. I reached my goal, and thanks to all the pledgers. And when I reached my goal, at that point on, the Michael J. Fox Foundation I donated 10% of the proceeds to them. And I met Michael J. Fox a few years ago, and at a conference, I went backstage and had a little chat with him. He told me he was a fan of my music and used to party to Echo Beach. But he was very charming, very nice guy.
Very nice. And so you also brought up the crowdfunding campaign. I guess first, how did that campaign go? Was it successful? And secondly, do you see crowdfunding? It's still a relatively new phenomenon within the music industry, but do you think it's something that will last and become a permanent part of how especially young and indie artists, I guess, finance their careers?
I think it's very successful, and it really will play a big part in the future. I mean, I wish this had been around when we were a young band, because I think it would have been great for our music, because we always felt we were a little out of step Echo Beach was a big hit, and things worked out well. But in terms of the kind of music we did, it was a bit more outside. Most of it was pretty much outside the box. So it would have been good to have reached our core audience that way. I think it would have been very successful. But it worked out really well for me this time. As I say, we reached the goal, and as well as reaching the goal, I think for people like myself and my partner Mike Raine, we hadn't really fully entered the social media realm, and it's something that it put us into that and put us in touch with our fans, because I'd rather write music and sing than do social media, but these days it really does connect you with your audience, and it's a necessary thing. And not only necessary, but it can be quite enjoyable when you start a conversation with a fan, and they're very happy to hear from you, on a personal basis. So that's very rewarding for both sides.
And I guess one of the other benefits is it gives you complete creative control that sometimes people don't always have when a label's funding the album. But also the fact that this is your first solo album also means that maybe for the first time you've had complete creative control. How did you find that process? Was it more rewarding, or how did that compare to, say, making a Martha and the Muffins album?
Well, we've had creative control for quite a while now, because we've had our own publishing, which I'd recommend to almost anybody. Keep your publishing, and we've had our own record company. It's just for us, but Muffin Music. And even right from the beginning, I mean, we put our foot down when it came to the creative control. I remember having arguments with the Disc, which was a small branch of Virgin Records when we were first signed. They wanted to shape us in a certain way, have the women out front, and certain things that we just wouldn't go along with. But I think having creative control is if you're a band like us and you have a lot of very set ideas and a way of presenting yourself and the sound that you want, then it's a good thing, I suppose. But it's good to have people around you that you do trust. Have a manager and people to do the graphics and sound people, and of course the producer. We had a wonderful producer on this. I had a wonderful producer on this album, Ray Dillard. He's a very talented guy. So you have to surround yourself with the right people, but that's having creative control as well.
And I guess to get back to the collaborative aspect of the album, obviously you said it kind of started with a few songwriting sessions with Ron Sexsmith. Your husband, Mike Raine, also appears on the album, as well as a number of other artists. What is it about that collaborative aspect of songwriting that you find you get out of when you compared to when you're just writing strictly on your own?
Well, I have written almost exclusively with Mark over the years, and our manager, Graham Stairs, decided to have these writing weekends, these collaborative writing weekends, and he got people that he knew, some people that he has signed to his label and he manages, but other people he'd worked with in the past, like Chris Tate, and newer people that he had contact with, like Hill Kirkudis from Hill and the Sky Heroes. He wanted to get these people together, sort of like a Brill building thing, like they used to be in New York, and get people together to see what they come up with, because he respected and was interested in all of us as songwriters, but getting us together would produce all sorts of new things, which it did. What I would do is I had all these lyrics that I had written over the past few years. I have a lot of sleepless nights, so I call them my sleepless songs. I'd wake up at like 3 or 4 in the morning, and I'd get up and I have these ideas. I'd have a whole song in my head pretty much, and I'd get up and I'd write it out. This is lyrically. I did stay up playing guitar as well sometimes, but lyrically, I'd type these things and I'd have all these lyrics. So I'd go into one of these writing sessions with other songwriters, and I'd present them with about a dozen finished lyrics, and I'd say, what appeals to you? That's what I did with Ron, and that's what I did with when I wrote with Will Whitwam from Wilderness of Manitoba, and Alistair Johnson from Grand Analog. I just went in and I said, what of these lyrics appeals to you? And they'd pick something, and we just go with that, and it spoke to them in a certain way, and obviously it had to me because I'd written it in the first place. And then we'd work out the music, we'd work out the melody, and they'd start playing guitar or keyboards or whatever they played. And it really worked really well. So I really love working with other people, and I'd never really tried it that much.
Interesting. And a phrase that I see is in the press release that you put out to announce the album, and I've seen it quoted in a number of places, is the phrase that this album is going to take you and your fans to new destinations. I'm kind of curious, what exactly does that mean? What are these destinations that you're speaking of?
I guess they're emotional destinations. I've experienced very severe and life-changing events in the last 10 years, 12 years. And I think what happens to you is you have to accept yourself as a new person. Like, you have to let that be part of you, and not take you out of yourself and be like the Parkinson's is an issue in my life. Always will be. So I have to adapt to that, but I don't want it to smother me and become my whole life. Like, in fact, one of the reasons I like doing music is because it can take you somewhere. It can take you to these places without actually seeing the person. I mean, here I am doing a video, but I love the fact that music is just music, and you can imagine anything you want. So in doing a song like, let's see, like there's a song called "Coming Through the Green" on my album, and it was written about sort of my vision of heaven. I have a friend who was very ill, and she was dying of breast cancer, actually, and she did pass away. And I wrote this song for her. It was about, you're going to be going to hopefully to a better place. I didn't say I don't know whether she is, but hopefully that's what I wanted to envision for her, because I wanted to see her somewhere better than where she was then, if just to help me get through it, So that was one of the places I think people can go, and emotionally inside yourself. You can go to lots of places because it's a very personal album, but I think people can relate to it in a personal way as well.
Interesting. Fantastic. And I guess for any young listeners, check out Martha and the Muffins if you haven't already, because they're an incredibly important band in Canadian music history. And also check out Martha Johnson's new album, Solo One. And for Canadian Musician, I'm Mike Raine, and thank you very much for this, Martha.
It's been really nice talking to you. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.